Yo, what is up guys, Gray here, and today we have got something a little bit different, and I'll be honest, I've just straight up ripped off this idea from my good friend Matt, aka Dr. Slacking, a far better content creator than myself, and has a far better facial hair game than myself as well. His link will be down in the description below. Make sure to go and check him out, sub if you aren't already, because like I said, he's a much better content creator than me. However, his opinions have been known to be bad. I know he often states them as facts, but his opinions are questionable at times. And I watched his tier list video for A tier / tier 1, whatever you want to call it, the top tier Pokemon in the Galar Dex. And there was a few things that I think I disagree with. I think there's definitely going to be some Mons that we have the same opinion on. I know there's a couple of Mons that he really loves and that I'm not so fond of. But yeah, with that, I think we should get straight into the video. I probably should have moved the monitors, so I'm going to be looking over here for the entire video. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to move this over now, so it looks like at least I'm looking towards you. You're probably going to see a change of color because my monitor gives off so much light. But yeah, we're also going to do some live editing. I think we'll change this. I think this is first pick worthy Mons. Then you got great. We'll go with some solid Mons, I think, for B tier. Things that are usable. And then there is Mons that, how can I put this in? You know what? I'm just going to be not tier 1 worthy. That's wordy. We can spell on this channel. I promise we can spell. Okay, so starting off we have got a Zoomrule. And I'll be honest, I've never really had too much of a problem with a Zoomrule. But I don't necessarily think that it's bad because of it. I just think that most teams, especially in this gen, are going to be drafting your bulky waters, bulky grasses to deal with things like Drakefish. Got things like Tarakion, Tyranitar's up here, Sizzle in the DLC as well. Excadrill is a big threat. I think a bulky water is so valuable in this gen. I think a Zoomrule is definitely worse off because of it. I know in the past the same Mons have been available, but I think that Zoomrule didn't really get any buffs, and it just doesn't seem as good in this gen. It definitely seems like it's easier to check. There's definitely more things out there that can revenge kill it, and yeah, I think it's just outclassed by a lot of things in the tier. I would say it's arguably one of the better offensive waters. Obviously it's a tier 1, but I don't even think it's the best offensive water. I think Keldeo is actually the best offensive water in the tier in this gen. Probably until some other stuff comes out. I know that's maybe a hot take because Urshifu's just come out and there's a lot of hype around it. But I think people are starting to realise that, Urshifu Rapid Strike isn't as good as we initially made it out to be. Next up we got Sizzle. And Sizzle's one of those Mons, I think it's almost... I think it's still tier 1 worthy. I think it is just about... I think when I come not tier 1 worthy, I think it's more of a case of I think in the future when we start seeing the legendaries, we're going to see things like Garchomp, probably Dragonite, Salamence. I'm trying to think what else there is that used to be tier 1. Mostly the legendaries. I think mostly the legendaries we're going to see a lot of things drop down. I think Sizzle is going to be one of them. Sizzle did get access to dual wing beat, but honestly, I don't think that's helping in too many situations. I know I had a battle with my friend Lux in PTL recently, and he has Mega Sizzle, and had he had dual wing beat instead of Aerial Ace, then he would have absolutely been able to take out my Vileplume at +1, and it would have made a big difference in the game. But actually, I think in the end it probably wouldn't have, because he would have been at +1. I mean, I'm going on a tangent here, but dual wing beat really didn't make too much of a difference, except for in a situation where you have someone like a Vileplume and you can't hit it for super effective U-turn or Bug Bite. So I just think that despite the fact they got a buff in No Hidden Power, there's no Hidden Power fire to hit it this gen, it still is just kind of on that tier 1, tier 2 border. Zoomrule, I've always thought that is also kind of on the tier 1, tier 2 border, but Sizzle definitely for me is it's arguably just about tier 1 worthy at this point, and I think in future when you start seeing things like Lando T come back, you're going to see Tapu Fini checks it relatively well. I mean, obviously the Tapu is not amazingly because they're part fairy. They do a better job. Like there's definitely things that can come in and check it. Also, you can see a ton of the dragon types, and I think the defensive sets with things like Salamence and Dragonite have way more viability in this gen. So yeah, I think looking forward, Sizzle is not going to be in tier 1. I think at this point is one of the worst picks for tier 1. Next up we got Gengar, and Gengar I think is solid. It's a mon I've used and for the most part not got a tournament value with it. It's definitely a threat. Whenever I faced it, it's a big problem to prep for. Nasty Plot made it so good. It could be Scarfed, it could be Nasty Plot, it can run like Sub Willow. I've seen like some crazy like Destiny Bond sets with Disable and all this sort of stuff, and it's also just fantastic offensive. And especially with Pursuit going away, Ghost got a massive buff in this gen, and Gengar is just really powerful. I think it's arguably the mon that got one of the biggest, if not the biggest buff from Pursuit going away, because Gengar used to be so easy to trap in, especially if you had like Assault Vest Tyranitar or Chopped Tyranitar. You could just click Pursuit and it would die whether it stayed in or switched out. So Gengar, I think this gen is much more of a threat, really strong mon. Next up we got Skarmory, and honestly Skarmory I don't think is tier 1 worthy. I've got it in BBR and it's good, don't get me wrong, it's good. I don't think it should in any league be in tier 1. I kind of just gone off the BBR tier list and added some mons that I've seen in tier 1 in other leagues. So Skarmory I think I saw in like 1 or 2 leagues because of body press this gen be put into tier 1, and I think it's just way too high. Sure, it's great utility with Stealth Rock, Spikes, body press is a nice addition, but it's still just it's still quite passive, and if it doesn't have the good matchup, then it's not a tier 1 one, because you want to bring your tier 1 every week, and I don't think you bring Skarmory every week. Next up we got Tyranitar, and this is where I think Matt and I's opinion changes massively, and it shouldn't be a surprise because Tyranitar is my mascot, and I know Matt loves Tyranitar, but I think it's a very good mon still. I don't think it's going to be dropping out of tier 1 at any time soon, because it's so versatile. Choice Band hits really hard. You can run Dragon Dance sets, you can run Rock Polish Weakness Policy sets, AV is amazing. Not to mention it does give you the potential sand setup for Excadrill, which to me is a waste of a mon. If you're wasting Tyranitar on Smooth Rock to set up for Excadrill, you're just using it all wrong. Like, sure, there's a couple of weeks where you might want to run that, but I think for the most part you run Tyranitar without sand, or with like maybe a Lycanroc Day or Stoutland in the back to potentially take advantage of the sand. But if you don't take advantage of it, it's still a fantastic mon, and I think we've not seen the best of Tyranitar in this gen, and I kind of want to use it again. I've used it a couple of times already, once in this gen in APA. It's just a ton of fun. I would draft it happily in tier 1. Clefable, that thing is great. I don't think it's quite first pick worthy, because I don't think you want to be picking up something like... So Clefable in regular OU is amazing because its typing is great, it gets Wish Pass, it gets Teleport, Unaware and Magic Guard are fantastic abilities, but I think in Draft League it's slightly more easy to deal with. You can definitely, like, you know it's going to be coming, so therefore you can prep against it, and so I don't think it's a first pick worthy mon, just on the basis of, like, it's not broken, I guess. Things like Melmetal, Mew, if it's allowed. Mew is absolutely broken in this gen. I was having a discussion with Lux the other day, and he was trying to argue why it wasn't. I still believe that, especially in Gala decks, it's just too good. National decks, it's questionable, but in Gala decks, there's just not a lot to check it in terms of every possible set it can run. Hence why it's not on here, because I believe that it's too good. But yeah, Clefable is a great mon. I still think it's extremely viable. Cosmic Power and Carmine sets are very, very strong. It only got better with the addition of Teleport, meaning that it's arguably the best Wish Passer in the game. So yeah, Clefable, great mon. Jirachi, this is one I've always said is kind of bad, but I know it's kind of good at heart, if that makes sense. I think it's either usable or it's solid. I think I'm going to look at the rest of the tier. I think it goes in solid. I think it just has enough versatility that it can be very good. Serene Grace is a dumb ability. It's so annoying. You can run Scarf Ironhead and just cheese the victory. You can run like Body Slam sets just to always get a para. I say always. It's going to para because it's 60% chance. And we all know from like Skull Burns, 30% is like 90%. 60% is basically just a guaranteed para. Outside of that, fantastic as a special attacker and physical attacker. Calm Mind, Cosmic Power sets, fantastic. Scarf is always solid. Just a really versatile mon, and I think it's still one of those mons that will always go either in the first or early second round. Even in national decks, I think it's still like a top 20 mon. I wouldn't argue any higher than top 20, but I think it's definitely a top 20 mon in national decks, and in Gala decks, very, very strong. Next up, we got Weavile, and honestly, if you had asked me at the start of the BBR season, and granted I'm only a couple of weeks in, I have played in week 2, I would have said it was not tier 1 worthy. I would have straight up said, not great, it's fast, sure it can hit hard, but it's frail, it's weak to rocks, it's just not good. Now, I think I might put it in solid, but I think I'll put it in usable. Definitely would put it over a Zoomrule. I think I keep these in the same order. It's definitely solid. Like, man, now I'm regretting like naming my tiers this. Weavile, I think, is like on the border between like those two tiers. It's very, very strong. Triple Axle was a fantastic stab to give it, albeit it doesn't always hit 3 times, which can be a little bit annoying. It can definitely cost you the necessary damage output every so often. But if you hit all 3 times with like a Life Orb or Choice Banded set, it's just going to take a life. Like, it's so strong. And having priority in Ice Shard also gives it, like, I think it just pushed it a little bit over the edge. It's definitely better than Zoomrule, in my opinion, because I would rather have a fast, hard-hitting mon than a slow one. Both get priority, both have very, very good typings. But for me, Weavile, just being able to spam knockoff, and if you have the right team to allow it to do that, then it can be a very, very powerful mon. I still don't think it's quite in this tier. I think it's... man, I kind of want to put it in this tier. You know what? I'm going to do it. I think it's actually better than Jirachi. No, I'm going to keep it below Jirachi. I'm going to keep it in solid. I think it's a very good mon. Next up, we got Dugtrio, and honestly, I don't think this is tier 1 worthy. I think it's actually probably like there. Even with Arena Trap, I think there's always ways of playing around it. It can be very annoying, don't get me wrong, but a good player will be able to play around the Dugtrio without much of an issue. It's just a matter of if you accidentally, if you misplay, then it can probably claim a kill, but I doubt it's ever going to claim more than like 1 or 2. It's not really like a sweeper, it's just one thing that's going to be trapped, and sure, that can be kind of game ending for you, but I don't think it's that great. I think as a trapper, GOTHEL is better, but I actually think that trapping generally is quite an easy, like, if you're playing correctly, if you prep correctly, then trapping is not as broken as people want to try and make it out to be. That might be a hot take, I don't know, that's just my opinion. And yeah, especially with moves like Teleport being able to give you initiative, you got Flip Turn now as well. There's so many more Mons that can avoid being trapped. And yeah, I would just say everything gets U-turn as well. Like everything that got added in Gen 7 and quite a few things that got added in Gen 8 get access to U-turn. So I think Dugtrio is not nearly as good as it used to be. Especially as a trapper, I think it's now fallen behind GOTHEL. So next up we got Excadrill, and Excadrill is definitely a great mon. With or without sand, it's fantastic. It's got like 3 great abilities, albeit you're probably going to use Sand Brush or Mold Breaker. Rapid Spin buff was huge for it because it means it doesn't have to run. It doesn't have to be running sand, and it can still just break through a team the same way that it used to be able to in sand. Obviously with sand, it just becomes like unleashed as some insane sweeper late game, but you still do need to build a team around it that's going to be able to break through the bulky waters, bulky grasses, bulky grounds, things like that. But it's still a fantastic mon. Basically you just click buttons, and I think any mons that you can just kind of click buttons in a late game is going to be well worth a first round pick. And yeah, Excadrill, especially in Galar decks, is, in my opinion, 100% there. Next up we got Conk, and Conk never goes drafted. Something I've noticed in recent gens, or at least recent drafts, not so much gens. I think in Gen 7 it was one of those picks that if you get it for like a tier 2, you absolutely would love to pick it up for tier 2. In Gen 8 it's always been tier 1 because it is very strong for tier 1. The addition of Defog was certainly very interesting, and it's made it a little bit better, but I think it's still just lacking. But I do think it's arguably better than all of these. Actually, I'm going to put it in usable. I think it's not much worse than a Zoomrule in my opinion. The fact it can be a status absorber, it's got 3 fantastic abilities as well. It's one of those mons that it's never going to be a first round pick in my opinion. It's always going to be like a later pick in the draft. If you are able to pick it up for like a tier like 1B or something like that, then I think it's very, very good. Every time I've seen it in tier 1, it's just not been picked because there's so many options now that are better. Looking forward into the future, I think it's only going to get worse with the Tapus coming out, and you've got Lando coming out. What else is there? You got multiple dragon types that are coming out as well. I don't think that Conk is going to stay in tier 1. I think it's definitely going to be a tier 2 mon after the next DLC. But in this current meta, it's definitely usable. Definitely usable in my opinion. Just go grab a drink. And yeah, moving on, we've got GOTHEL. And honestly, I think GOTHEL's a better better trapper, like I said, than Dugtrio. Mainly because it's bulky, it gets cosmic power in this gen. But like I said with Dugtrio, if you are a good enough player, you should be able to play around GOTHEL. With phasing, initiative, even things like Shed Shell on mons that you think might get trapped. I think it's definitely a playstyle that's effective against certain teams. If you can, it's definitely a great mon. Like I think if you get it in on the right thing, it can be a real problem. But at the same time, I just feel like a good player doesn't let GOTHEL do what GOTHEL wants to do. And so it's usable. I think it's arguably not tier 1 worthy, but I think GOTHEL is just better than Dugtrio because it's bulky, because of its typing. Yeah, I'd say it's just better. Mandibuzz, honestly, Mandibuzz you don't see in tier 1 that often. But when you see things like Corvo Night, you see Slowbro, I see Toxapex, Skarmory as well in tier 1. Mandibuzz 100% belongs with those mons in my opinion. It's a very, very bulky mon, and it checks a lot of really strong things in the metagame right now. I think it's definitely in this usable tier. I'd actually say it's better than Zoomrule. Honestly, even though it's not always a tier 1 pick, I would say that Mandibuzz is definitely better than those mons. You could almost argue it would go into this tier, with the solid tier, but I think in Draft League it's definitely easier to deal with. You can definitely have the coverage moves you need, but at the same time, Mandibuzz, and like almost unless you Toxic it, it's going to really be difficult to take down. Heavy Duty Boots made it so much better to deal with, be able to switch in on rocks. It's a fantastic defogger, and it can be great as a phaser. It can just sit there and Toxic an entire team as well. Foul Play makes sure that you can't really set up on the physical side. So yeah, I think Mandibuzz is a fantastic mon. Moving on, we've got Hydreigon, and Hydreigon is one of these mons that honestly it's between these two tiers. I think it's just about in this tier. Do I think it's better than Weavile? No, I don't think it is. Nasty Plot, also a fantastic addition to it. It's given it the ability to really just punch holes through teams. You don't have to run specs to be a wall breaker on it anymore. You can switch up your moves with Nasty Plot. I just think its weaknesses make it a little bit worse in its speed tier, just being under that base 100. Certainly, like with the addition of Volcarona, you got the swords as well. I think you're seeing things like Hydreigon just not be as good. If it was early Gen 8 meta, I would say it's like towards the top of solid, but I think it's definitely been pushed down by the fact there's been a lot of fighting types introduced recently, and even things like Zeraora have like play rough and close combat to deal with it. You've got the two fighting bears as well. Honestly, I'm actually going to just put it down here. I think it's actually worse than Mandibuzz. I love it, it's a great mon, but I don't know. I think it could be really good in the right hands. Currently, I just don't think it's very good in the meta, and it makes me sad because I love Hydreigon. Volcarona, I don't believe in the hype of Volcarona, but I still think it's a very solid mon. I think it sits at the top of that tier. Heavy Duty Boots makes it so much better in this gen. Does mean you basically giving up an item for it, but then again, it was always trying to basically heal itself up. It means you don't have to run Roost on it. So you can run Quiver Dance 3 attacks. You can run Sub Willow. I've seen like Sub Toxic. You've got Hurricane, Psychic for coverage. It's a very strong mon, and I think there's definitely checks to it. In this meta, there's certainly like some pretty solid checks to it. But yeah, Volcarona is very strong in this gen, and I wouldn't be surprised if I see that go around round 1 in most drafts. Next I go Tarakion, and honestly, I think Tarakion probably lives about here. And I'm actually going to put Keldeo in there as well. I think Keldeo is slightly better in this current meta than Tarakion is. Is that too low? I think they're better than Weavile. I think they're better than Jirachi. They're better than Tyranitar. Better than Gengar? I don't think they're better than Gengar. I think it's arguable. I think these three are very close: Gengar, Keldeo, Tarakion. Tarakion and Keldeo are fantastic. I picked up Keldeo in BBR, and the addition of Flip Turn has really helped it. That's why I think it's better than Tarakion in this gen. Not to mention it got the access to Air Slash, which is huge for hitting bulky fightings. It hits bulky grasses much better. Subtoxic is a very underrated set on it as well. It gets Calm Mind, and its bulk is just generally pretty good. Its typing is very good as well. Tarakion I think is just slightly weaker, but its typing is almost always just really difficult to deal with. I've been helping a friend do team build every week in a league, and he's fairly new to the game, so it's been interesting to see how Tarakion teams up or faces up against a lot of mons in the current meta, and there's very few checks. Very few things want to switch into its dual stabs, and if it gets a rock polish up against certain teams and their checks are just lowered, Tarakion just runs through a team. It just runs through a team. So yeah, very strong mon in this meta, but I think Keldeo just edges it out with its ability to run initiative, to run the ability to boost its defenses as well. Its special defense, obviously. Curium, Do I think Curium's great? I think Curium is one of the biggest beneficiaries of this gen. Freeze Dry is really nice for it. Heavy Duty Boots is a great addition for a bulkier set. Scale Shot now gives it speed and a Dragon Stab, so you don't have to run Dragon Dance. I just feel like it's lacking on that physical side. If it got Icicle Crash, I think this thing is 100% great. I think it's just below Volcarona at the moment. It's a very strong mon, very good. I would not be surprised if this goes in the first round. It has very few switch-ins. Mostly like Assault Vest mons are going to be able to switch into it. And if you get caught out with a Dragon Dance set, then yeah, Curium is very strong. But I don't think it's quite great. I don't think it joins these mons. Alakazam, I haven't really seen it do a lot, but its speed tier and its special attack, especially with the addition of Nasty Plot, I don't know where to put it. It's definitely better than those two. I would put it around there. Do I think it's better than Zoomrule? I think it's better than Zoomrule. I think it's just worse than Hydreigon. Focus Sash sets are great. Life Orb without the recoil is... Recoil? Who the fuck says recoil? Without the recoil is always great. Specs hits really hard. If you have it on a Psychic Terrain team with Indeedee, then Expanding Force is just going to tear through a team. It gets just enough coverage. It's a very strong mon, but it's frail as anything, and I think there's a lot of good Dark types currently out. And there's also things like, I know where Clefable is going to be able to deal with it. To be honest, like a lot of especially defensive mons are going to have a pretty good time against it. Other than that, though, it's got very good matchup, because a lot of these top tier things are fighting type. I think it's unproven in this gen, and I think we're going to see more of it, and we're going to see it really excel in this gen. But for now, I'm just going to keep it down there. I think it's very good, but it's not amazing. Aegislash, I think, is one of the first pick worthy mons. Very strong. Just got so many good sets. Subtoxic is a fantastic defensive set. You got Autotomized Weakness Policy, you got Swords Dance, you got Choice Specs, Choice Band. Like, you can run a weakness reducing berry to be able to just smack something super hard and break a hole for something else to sweep later. Aegislash is just like a jack of all trades and master of all of them. Not quite to the same extent that I think Mew is, but it's certainly a very strong mon. And sure, it got slightly nerfed in this gen, but I don't think it's made it that much worse that it drops out of this first pick worthy mon. Hawlucha, I think Hawlucha's definitely got, like, with close combat, it now has a way of boosting its own, or taking its own unburden with a White Herb and not needing the terrains, but I still feel like it's better on the terrains because you just want to get that defense boost. Honestly, I feel like it's about here, because it's similar to things like the trapping. If you have a good player, I don't think it's going to let Hawlucha do as much work to your team. You're going to make sure you have priority, you're going to have phasing, you're going to have a bulky mon to take a hit and be able to do a big chunk in return. So I think Hawlucha is still very good. I think it's definitely a tier 1 mon at the moment. Going to be very questionable, I think, when the legendaries come back, because there's so many legendaries that just check it. But for now, I think Hawlucha is in this kind of area. I think it's just a very strong mon, and if it has a good matchup, then it can just run through a team. Toxpex, really good mon, but I think it's probably not. It's not going to be tier 1 worthy come the end of this like cycle. I think it's a good mon, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's worth, like in BBR it's 200 points, I just don't think it's worth that. It's very bulky, Toxic Spikes are very nice, Regenerator amazing, reliable recovery as well, even though you're going to be running a Regenerator most of the time. It's just, it doesn't hit really for any damage. Like, Scald Burn's nice, Knockoff is nice, just looking at like Mandibuzz, that has U-turn, it has initiative, it has foul play to stop setup. Sure, that has haze. This also has whirlwind. Looking at things like Clefable, that doesn't let anyone set up. If it's unaware, it doesn't care. Didn't mean to rhyme that, but it's still a great mon. I still very much like Toxapex. It's one of my favourite mons that I used in Gen 7. In terms of bulky mons, it's one of my favourite mons to use. But I just think it's down here with Skarmory. I think Toxapex and Skarmory in a similar position where they just don't quite do enough to, in my opinion, stay in tier 1. Komodo, I think, is a really strong mon. If it's Clangorous Soul, then it's like up in this grey tier. If it's not Clangorous Soul, like most leagues banning Clangorous Soul, I'd argue it's down. Is it here? I'd say it's probably around here. I think it's like low mid tier in terms of where it sits. I think that's kind of fair. Like, it's got body press, it gets Dragon Dance, Iron Defense. Body press is really nice. It gets pretty good coverage. Could be run special or physical. Gets Autotomize as well, which is always nice. Belly Drum as well. There's plenty of sets that Komodo can run, but I think it's just without Clangorous Soul, it's kind of lacking a little bit. And I think it's still tier 1, but it's like kind of hanging on. When the Tapus come out, this thing's probably dropping to tier 2, in all honesty, unless it still has Clangorous Soul. So for now, I think in this meta, it's good. It's definitely a good mon. I think Hydreigon is better, but Komodo is very solid. It does definitely a different job. Necrozma, I actually would put in great. I think Necrozma is a very, very strong mon. One of the freest weakness policy users in the game. Autotomize is always free, pretty much. There's very few things that can one-shot it. I don't think there's actually anything at all outside of like maybe Choice Band, Weavile, Knockoff. Probably has to be Adamant to have a chance. So yeah, Necrozma always gets free setup. Its defensive sets are great. Calm Mind, Dragon Dance, gets Swords Dance, I believe, as well. So tons of setup potential. Great Stealth Rocker. There's so many different sets this thing can run, and at the same time, it can be like one of the most potent setup sweepers in the game. Necrozma can just win a game if put in the right position. Zeraora, also in this grey tier, I actually think it's better in this gen than Necrozma. Do I argue it's better than Excadrill? I think it's better than Excadrill. It's for a mon that people rated so lowly, and when it first came out, people were like, it's like a tier 3 mon. I saw it in tier 3 in some leagues. I was like, that's a joke. It's so good. This gen, I think, it's really, really shown what it can do, and the amount of coverage it gets with the speed tier that pretty much allows you to run Adamant or Modest, depending if you want to go that side. It's fantastic in this gen. It hits so hard. It's so hard to prep for because of all this coverage. Not to mention it gets bulk up as well, so you can run a bulk up set. It has just enough bulk to be able to take hits, and its speed tier is just insane. Especially in a meta where, if you look at these mons, like you're looking at like base 110, 108, what's highest thing, 120 there, 125. There is not a lot that it's going to be able to not run Adamant on, and Adamant just hits really, really hard. Plasma Fist is a really strong move, and then its coverage just kind of makes up for anything that it can't hit with Plasma Fists. So, really good mon. I think Melmetal is in tier 1. I think it's above Aegislash. Is it above Aegislash? You could argue it is. You could also argue it isn't. I think I'm going to put it below Aegislash at the moment. No, I'm putting it above. Melmetal just hits like an absolute truck. Choice banded, there is no switch-ins unless you have like a Rotom Wash or Rotom Heat. It can run like Earthquake, or I think it has Stone Edge as well. So there's not a whole lot the Melmetal is not going to be able to hit. It hits Bulky Waters with Thunder Punch, Bulky Grounds with Ice Punch. It's fantastic. It can run a damage reducing berry, you can run it AV, you can run it with like body press, with iron defense. There's so many different things you can run with Melmetal. I think like people have just gone, oh, it's click double iron bash and win. Sure, you can play that style, but there's so many other sets that make Melmetal such a threat, and I think it is one of, if not the best. Looking at what we got left, I think there's only one Mon that actually comes close to being as strong as Melmetal is in its current meta. Slowbro, I think, is around this level. I think it's better than Zoomrule. Honestly, I'd probably put it here. I had real high hopes for Slowbro. I love the Mon, it's so good. But at the same time, I think it was overhyped. Teleport is a really nice addition, Body Press is a fantastic addition to it as well. But it's still Slowbro. Like, I don't think those additions have made it so much more powerful that it's like immediately put into the top of tier 1. Honestly, I could see the thing being back in tier 2. It's already in tier 2 in some leagues, but I do think it's got very good value. So if you're picking up in tier 2, I think it's fantastic value. But yeah, Slowbro, a little underwhelming despite the fact that I think it's still very good. Done a lot of work with Slowbros in the past. It does get Calm Mind, it gets Nasty Plot in this gen, but honestly, Nasty Plot is not the best. I think you want to run Calm Mind most of the time. It does get Iron Defense, Body Press, which is really nice. But at the same time, it's kind of just toxic fodder a little bit. Corvo Night, this thing's very good. I'm going to put it in great tier. Do I think it's better than? I think it's better than Necrozma. Do I? No. I think I'm going to put Corvo Night here. It's a very good bulky Mon. I've seen people use this extremely well. I've not used it amazingly in the past, but I've seen people just straight up 6-0 people because they don't have a good answer to Corvo Night. If you are able to use your team to deal with the electric types and deal with the fire types, like, all you realistically need is a good ground type to partner with this, and it can just end up stalling out a team. Pressure Stall is annoying, it gets bulk up, it gets like U-turn, so you can't even expect it to stay in, it could just switch out on you. Defog is always really nice. It's just a very good Mon, and people at the start of the gen were like, it's a budget Skarmory. I think Skarmory is a budget Corvo Night now, and I think most people actually have the same impression. Drakefish, this is probably the worst Mon on the list. Actually, I think there is one Mon that is worse on this list. Arguably worse. Actually, I'm not entirely sure it is. I think Drakefish is the worst Mon on this list. This thing's a tier 2. Sure, it hits hard, but man, Hustle is always going to miss. It's always going to let you down when you need it. Bolt Beak is really powerful, but from base 75 speed, there's going to be things that aren't even scarfed that outspeed that. Like, you can run things like Zeraora or Dragonfall. They're easily going to be able to outspeed a Choice Scarf variant. I'm pretty sure Timid or Jolly. Not to mention it gets outsped by all the Scarfers, it gets walled, hard walled by a ground type, whilst Drakefish obviously doesn't. There's only certain ground types that can deal with Drakefish. Drakefish, I think, is just bad. And I think even with Sand Rush coming out soon, it's better, but it just is better for one move. Effectively, it becomes like a worse Drakefish, and it's going to be just click Bolt Beak, like probably choice band Bolt Beak with Sand Rush, and hope that they don't have a ground type to check it. Next up we got Drakefish, and I'm once going to put that in the great tier. Sure, this thing is one-dimensional. When I say one-dimensional, it's literally one move. You pretty much always click Fishious Rend, unless the matchup is that bad that you don't bring Drakefish effectively. If they have like Gastrodon, Seismitoad, you probably are gonna like run Outrage and make sure that Outrage to it goes it. Tangrowth is a really nice addition to the gen that actually checks. I say it checks it gets Ice Fang, it gets Leech Life. Like, grass types are not safe against it. I think Drakefish is a really powerful Mon, and I can understand why some people are banning it, but I think it's only ban worthy where people don't know how to check it. If you're in a league with less experienced coaches, I think it's definitely it's too good, because they don't understand how to check it. Even with Mons that don't have a water immunity. Bulky waters deal with it really nicely, and it's still a fantastic mon. If you don't have the right team to deal with it, then it can just sweep through, but I think Drakefish is very easy to read, and honestly not as good as people make it out to be. Certainly I don't think it's ban worthy. Dragonfall is the best mon in this gen. Straight up the best mon. I've been using it in PTL, and sure, I haven't used it amazingly. There's been some weeks where I sacked it off where I shouldn't have sacked it off. I brought it in a position where it's never going to be able to win the game. But Dragonfall is one of those mons that, like Zeraora, it can run Modest, it can run Adamant, it has Dragon Dance sets, it has Willow Hex sets, you can run Specs Hex as well. Banded Dragon Darts hits so hard as you get rid of their fairy types and their steel types. It's just amazing. Like, its coverage is brilliant, its ability to set up, and also its bulk is pretty good as well. Like, its bulk is not to be slept on. If you partner this with the right team, then it's just going to be an absolute carry for your team. And honestly, it's the best mon in the current meta. And that, to me, is not even questionable. I think it's the best mon. Urshifu Rapid Strike is down in solid. I think, honestly, it's with Keldeo. I think it's bulkier anyway than Keldeo. I could be wrong on that, but it's hitting hard. It's hitting on the physical side, and it's hitting real hard on the physical side, but it is kind of rocky helmet bait. It is walled pretty easily by bulky grass types, bulky water types with reliable recovery. Bulky psychics also don't mind too much about this. It's inferior to Rapid Strike, to Single Strike even, in my opinion, and I think in general opinion. I think Rapid Strike is up here. Honestly, I think it's below Corvo Night. I don't think it's better than these mons, but it's certainly going to be like it. I could be proven wrong as the gen goes on. Wicked Blow hits really hard, whilst Rapid Strike, albeit like it hits hard with Surging Strikes, it's also going to be a 3-hit move, which, depending on the situation, actually could be better. Like, it does prevent sub, and it does break sturdy, stuff like that, focus slashes, where Wicked Blow doesn't. But you're just going to be breaking through things so easily with Adamant, Choice Band, Wicked Blow. Gets close combat as well, which is always a really nice move. It gets U-turn, which is incredible for just slowly chipping down things that could be a check to you. Yeah, I think Urshifu Single Strike is... Honestly, I would be surprised by the end of this meta if it's up towards the first pick worthy tier. But at the same time, I would be surprised if people learn how to counter it and it drops down to the solid tier. Lastly, we've got Zoomrule, and that's like just about, I think, above GOTHEL. Again, I don't believe this is a tier 1 mon by any means. Tier 2, it would be great value, but I think it's definitely meant to be there. Its offensive typing is great. It's a solid mon. I think it's good, but it's not going to be like Zeraora in my opinion, where it goes from not tier 1 worthy to great within a single gen. So anyway, that's the team. Wow, I'm so used to team builders and draft league content that, yeah, this is my team of entire tier 1. This is what I think is roughly what the tiers look like. Honestly, there's a few things that I could argue be in a different position. I'm sure that I'm going to get a lot of shit for where I put some things, but at the end of the day, it's opinion. If you disagree, then by all means leave your comments down below and tell me where I went wrong. Tell me where I am an absolute idiot and don't know what I'm talking about. Also, like I said, make sure to go and check out Matt, aka Dr. Slacking. He's a much better channel than me, so go and check out his video. You may agree with his opinions more. He does believe that his opinions are factual, and yeah, if you want to agree with him, then by all means go ahead. Before I go ahead and ramble on too long, if you did enjoy the video and you like this sort of thing, leave a like down below, and I might just go through the rest of the tiers. We'll see, because the other tiers are much bigger. I think the top tier is kind of where things are at, and people are probably most interested in the top tiers. But if you want to see the other tiers, then by all means show your support. And I mean, I've got no other content really to do, so I'll probably go ahead and do tier 2 regardless. But if it keeps getting the love, then by all means I'll go through all the tiers. And if you want to enjoy this sort of thing, I plan to do much more. I want to do like not daily uploads, but a few uploads a week at the very least. So if you want to keep around for that, then make sure to subscribe. And before I make this outro like 6 minutes long, have a great day. Yeah, have a great day, guys.